Hi, Dr. Michelle. Lovely to see you. Thanks for joining us. We've got a few questions to get through today after the brilliant webinar that you spoke on. So I will get going if that's all right.
Thank you.
Okay, my 12-year-old daughter has told me she is being cyberbullied. How should I approach this?
First of all, what I would say is have a detailed conversation with her. Have a look with her. Sometimes what children interpret as being bullied isn't really, it might be a difficult conversation that they're having online. Once you've got the information, if the perpetrator of the bullying is at school, please contact the school and have a discussion with the adults at school. It is difficult because obviously if it's occurred outside of school, it's outside of their remit to a certain extent. However, most schools are understanding that these relationships often move back into school, so would be really keen to speak to you. If it's external, please put the parental restrictions online if you can. So initially close off from the bully, approach your child and talk to them about what the content has said and support them with managing their emotions around the content. So having conversations about people may express their views and their opinions. That doesn't mean that there is a reality or a truth for you, etc., etc. So really what we're trying to do is support the young person so they feel strengthened and enabled. If you can find some way of getting some restorative action, i.e. being able to speak to the perpetrator if they are at the school, that would be great. There's great research around restorative action and bullying. If it is in cyberspace and there's no identity, please put all the protections that you can in place, but support your child with knowing that they're protected, you understand, and be nurturing around the conversation. But most importantly, don't panic.
Really good advice, yeah, and I really like what you said about her helping the child to build that sort of resilience should it happen again in the
Absolutely.
future as they grow. Yeah. Okay. Okay. How can I ask my children to make good choices about their web content and time online rather than enforcing restrictions through online parental controls?
That's a great question and one I'm asked often. It really is about building up their relationship, their ability to be a digital citizen. We spoke about that a little bit on the presentation. It really is about supporting your young person with modeling first off to be able to understand what good choices look like online. So you're showing them what good choices are by your practices as well, about content and the time online. It really is a process. It's a marathon rather than a sprint. So again, initially, like I spoke about at the webinar, start off with speaking to them about or observing the amount of time that you all spend online, and then really try and think about what's realistic for our family in terms of time wise on a regular and day-to-day basis. And then start to, first of all, do tangible checks, maybe a family plan around the web time, time online, and then have these open discussions about content. Because just as you would be having discussions about who they're playing with or interacting with in the real world, have those discussions about what's occurring online. So it's a long process, but one that is full of quality and resilience building really for all of you.
Great, thank you. Definitely food for thought for all the family. Okay, so somebody has asked, what is ASD, please?
Okay, so it's autism spectrum disorder. It's really about when A is a diagnosis about social interaction and communication difficulties. In summary, there's quite a lot of detail on it, but I would say to you, it's generally autism. That's what was meant by ASD.
Thank you. How do I deal with a situation where my son, who is 10, is playing a game I don't want him playing when he goes to his friend's house after school?
Oh, that's really a tricky one.
Mm.
Now, first off, what I say to parents is if he's going to a friend's house after school to play, really he's outside of your supervision and in the supervision of that parent. So first off, have a discussion with that parent about what he will be playing online. So, it could pretty much be to be honest, around that age group, it will be probably something like Fortnite, for example. The parent is not wanting their child to play that. You can then negotiate with them and say, would you mind if they played Minecraft, for example, or Roblox when they're at their house? But it really is ultimately out of your control. So I would say initially speak to the parent and see if there is any negotiation that can be had. And then you've got to make a decision about whether you're happy for your child to go, knowing that they may be exposed to something that you're not happy with them being exposed to.
Thank you. When my child is upset, his go-to comfort is YouTube. How can I make them understand that this is wrong behaviour and he's just numbing his emotions?
Okay, this is a really good question. Now, it's about how we manage and support our emotions. I think the word wrong I'd probably replace with thinking about alternatives. And so really, when we're thinking about how we manage behaviour, we're thinking about alternatives to what the child is doing. So it would be supportive to think about alternatives for him to YouTube. So if you're not happy with him going there, which I understand, what could you do? Does he have the emotional vocabulary at the moment? Maybe you could discuss and maybe have an emotional vocabulary list of words that you talk about, use, support him again through modeling different ways of expressing his emotions and thinking about his emotions. It might be that you might need to seek some support to help him with expressing himself and expressing his emotions. There's lots of support online for parents around emotional literacy and how to support your young person with being able to emotionally express themselves. So as an initial, I'd say have a good Google search around emotional literacy and really think about putting some of those strategies in place. So he's got choices, if you like, rather than seeing YouTube as a wrong and right.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Another social media challenge faced by 12-year-old kids is some kids are taking screenshots of personal chats and sharing them on group chats to name and shame each other. How do we teach kids to be careful while chatting?
This is a really important one, and again, touches on what I was speaking about building their digital resilience, but their digital citizenship as well. I often say to my own child and children that I work with, the impact is lifelong, can be lifelong, of you writing something online or doing something online that you wouldn't do in front of your teacher, or family members that you respect. So what I would say is, it's continual discussions with your children about the impact that this can have and the serious impact that it can have. I mean, obviously the 12 to 13, you can start to speak to them about the emotional impact that it can have on others, and in the most serious instances, obviously there has been self-harming or suicide even. To really start speaking to them about the impact that this can have, but also their ability to withdraw and say no if they're feeling uncomfortable about what the group are asking them to do.
Mm-hmm.
But first off, it's about not supporting them with not writing online anything that they wouldn't be comfortable with sharing with everybody.
Really important conversations to have there. Okay. My 10-year-old son has told me he saw porn on his friend's older brother's phone. I don't know where to start.
Okay. Often parents will say this and feel quite overwhelmed by it. I would say start at the beginning. As I was saying on the webinar, sexual education seems to be being dictated to at the moment by porn online to a large extent. And we as parents and as adults have to take control and take back the conversation. So really think about what is it that you want your child to think about intimacy, sexual interaction, etc., etc., and then start the conversation. It's a tricky conversation to have, but it's better that you're having it than adults outside or other children outside or them seeing it on porn sites. Again, there is advice online, and there I will give Sarah, I'll give you some of the sites that would be really helpful for parents
Right.
to know about, that can help them to discuss those tricky conversations. But I would say start from the beginning, start from actually, normalizing intimacy, normalizing sexual relationships, and, explaining that what they're seeing online isn't the usual normal interaction. And so really these conversations are about you starting to discuss what normality is around sensuality and sexuality, really, and it's not fun.
Yeah. And we'll put those resources in the comments section below.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I think that guidance is so important, isn't it? Because you can feel overwhelmed, but even as you were talking about it, you were so calm, and I think it's taking that as well, wasn't it, to the child?
Yeah, and that's important, not to panic.
Okay, my daughter keeps going on at me to put my card details on her Fortnite account and asking me to get her credit. It escalates into arguments. What can I do? It's causing so many problems in the house.
Okay, I get this often, and it can cause quite significant financial difficulties for parents if they are putting their credit cards on or their debit cards on. What I would say is it's good money management as well, if you like, in the future. I'm not sure how old your daughter is, but what you could do is get a singular card that's linked to her pocket money if she has that. What you can do is pull a certain amount on that card. That card is only ever used for this situation, and manage it that way. I'm hoping that you've got the parental guidance and you've got the parental guidance on Fortnite as well, and you can oversee what is being spent, or on your phone at least, so you can see what's being spent. But please, please, please don't put your personal debit or credit card on Fortnite, but get one specifically for this. You can again support her with managing her own economics, really, by saying this is the amount that you have. Once it's done, and you choose how you spend it. So again, you could align it with the pocket money, ensuring that she saves some, and then some is put on the card. But get a specific card for this, and not one that you use. And certainly not one that's linked to your main accounts for the home.
Yeah, I've heard some horror stories around card details and hundreds of pounds being rung up. So yeah, brilliant. Okay, thank you, Michelle. I have been informed by my son's secondary school that they have found porn on his phone. He's 13. We haven't spoken about any of this, and I really don't know where to start.
Okay, again, I've spoken about this. It is a concern for lots of parents at the moment. Please don't feel overwhelmed by having the conversation. There are conversation starters that you can have a look at online. Be calm about the approach. It's better that you're speaking to him than others. If it's happened at school as well, you can seek support from the school as well about how to approach it. But I would say be calm and speak to him in detail, though. Detail that may be a little bit uncomfortable to you, but speak to him about it. You really want him to have a positive relationship around intimacy and sex. So you don't want to be using words that you can't do this, you mustn't do this, etc., because it often has two different effects. Either it tarnishes their whole idea around intimacy, or they'll just start to do it behind your back. To really think about how you can calmly approach these conversations. And again, I'll leave some links with Sarah.
Great, thank you, Dr. Michelle. And I think this refers to the webinar. Is this just applicable to gaming or the use of social media? The advice you were giving. Yeah.
Okay. I tried to make it generic to gaming and social media, all the things that I placed online. There were some differentiations, and I think we spoke about them.
Okay. My son is 14 and autistic. He has a habit to search maps, new places, bus routes, etc. But now he is more addicted.
Addicted to, I'm not sure if
I think with those habits of searching maps and new places and bus routes and things. So it sounds like it's more about the addiction to being online and.
Yeah, okay. So again, it's about really trying to contain and structure the time that he has online, ensuring that if it's if it's a behaviour that is part of his pattern of fixation, and then supporting him with adding some structure into that. So if it's maps, allowing him, giving him the time and the structure, and saying, we'll have half an hour today where you can look at the maps and the new places. Really try and engage him in the structure and organisation of it, so it's not overtaking. But I would say to you to seek advice and support, because he does have a diagnosis, from both school and the SEND department, and ask them to support you with perhaps getting a referral outside of school to support you with developing the timetable and strategies at home.
Thank you. My children often compare their allowed gaming time to their friends, and this builds in a sense of injustice and unfairness due to our boundaries. Are there any tips for dealing with this?
Yes, this often comes up online as well as offline. Well, my friends can do this. And I think it's okay for you to be different, and for your children to recognise that it's not better or worse, but it's just different. Also, often there is this my friends, but when you speak to other parents, you recognise that they're also inputting some boundaries. So it's helpful if you can to communicate with other parents and just see how true that is, but also for you to hold your ground. What holds us in place as parents are the boundaries that we're able to set for our children. It grounds us, but it also grounds them. So be really clear with your boundaries. If you're happy with them, stick to them, but make them realistic. So, for example, if they are online with their peers and they're gaming, make the agreement at the beginning that they will be on there for the set time. So there's no argument at the end of it, but you said or you didn't say. So there's clear guidelines around the time that they're on, and they can share that with their friends as well. It is tricky because you will have parents that will allow their children to game endlessly once they're home from school. But if you don't want that for your child, ensure that there are boundaries. It's the same as when we were younger, for example. And, I certainly had friends that would be able to play outside for, hours and hours. And I had a strict time that I had to come home. And that was just it. And that was just accepting different parenting styles. And your children will get used to that.
Okay, thank you. How do I find out about other similar events, please? I kept this on because if they're talking about brilliant parents events, then stick with us, stick with the YouTube, follow our Facebook and our website, and you can find out about other webinars. But in case there was anything you wanted to share, Dr. Michelle.
Oh, thank you. I do have a website called askdrmichelle.co.uk, and I put events on there, any speaking events that I'm on. So thanks for asking.
I'd love to hear further as to how this relates to a lack of motivation to do other things.
I think if you're referring to the gaming, what often happens is gaming is exciting, isn't it? It's interesting, it's enticing. I was speaking about the impact that it can have on the brain, the chemical formulations that come when you're on online gaming. So there are lots of attractions to staying online. And that can impact on the motivation to do anything else if you are doing it disproportionately. So really what I often advise parents to do is get the balance. So really seek out the alternatives and engage with those alternatives as often as possible. So they are encouraged to seek out other things.
My son gets up early to watch TV and happily watches for 2 hours straight. Then he wants his phone and tablet during the day. He'll then get tired and fatigued and doesn't help during the day. What can I do?
That's a really interesting question, and one that I think lots of parents are experiencing. The children getting up early because they know they'll have free time on the screen, whether it's watching TV or gaming, etc. So again, it's really about being really clear with your timetable. What is acceptable for you as a family on a regular basis, and what screen time means. Is it television and gaming and the phone and the tablet? Is it that the TV time is separate too? You've got to make that decision and then stick to that. You might say, actually, you can watch TV in the morning for this amount of time, and then you have the tablet and the phone for this amount of time. So being clear about it. So you can differentiate what different screens means to you, or you might have one catch-all timetable. But again, it's in a calm situation, writing down the times, having that discussion, and being clear about it, and then being boundaried, and also recognizing it might take a while to transition clearly to that time. So you've got to stick to your boundaries around that.
So can I just ask, would you say that it's sort of about implementing where you want to be straight away, or is it gradually implementing changes to?
I think once you've got the timetable, implementing that.
Right.
Yeah. And then saying, right, okay, this is what we are going to do.
So doing it together, and then
yeah. And it might be different over the weekends as opposed to the week as well. So you might want to think about not having any, screen time in the mornings in the week, because obviously we're sort of going to school. And it might be more of a distraction that make it more difficult to do those things. And then on the weekend, you might be a little bit more relaxed around it.
Brilliant. Great. Well, thank you so much for all your time and your expertise. It's been really appreciated, and we hope to have you again soon.
No problem. Pleasure.